This week's Torah portion is Parshas Pikudei. Parshas Pikudei brings to conclusion the book of Exodus, Sefer Shmos, the second of the 5 books of Moses. And it takes us to the incredible conclusion of the journey that began with the enslavement of the Jewish people in Egypt and the process of Moses, our teacher, making us aware that there's a better way. There's a way that we can be liberated from the physical slavery if we choose to be liberated from the spiritual slavery. What's spiritual slavery? That's when we put other things, we make other priorities ahead of the service of God Almighty. Wanting to belong, wanting to be taken care of, fear. When we make those our higher power, then automatically we start to devolve into slavery. So Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses, our teacher, he was sent by God Almighty to redirect the Jewish people, by extension to redirect all of humanity, every single person, to learn the lesson of the Exodus from Egypt, to see that whenever you find yourself in a place of physical bondage, it's a lesson that there's meant to be first an exodus from spiritual bondage. And that will then bring about a reflection in the physical, that you will then experience the redemption from whatever physical bondage you are finding yourself in. And taking the Jewish people out of Egypt to cross the Red Sea, to come to the giving of the Torah on Mount Sinai, when God Almighty spoke to the Jewish people and also spoke in 70 languages simultaneously, that all the nations of the world should understand the commandments that apply to all humanity. First and foremost is the commandment to even understand and to know that there's a God Almighty, and to know there's nothing besides God Almighty, and to bring that message to every single human being, to bring the message of hope, that there is a purpose to our creation, there's a purpose to our existence, and that there's a significance in what we have to offer, each one of us individually, what we have to offer, not only to God Almighty, our Creator, but to every other human being. And that then takes us to understanding that our actions make a difference. The Torah portion of Mishpatim taught us how we're supposed to conduct ourselves in relationship to other human beings and God's command. It's not a secondary matter. It's not sufficient to be connected to God, but a person needs to be connected to his fellow man and have to have boundaries and guidelines on how to connect himself properly. And then taking us to the building of the sanctuary, the holy tabernacle in the desert, which is the model for and the precursor for the building of the Holy Temple in Jerusalem. At the conclusion of building this dwelling place for God Almighty in this world, which is supposed to be a focal point for the service of all humanity, which is then miniaturized, so to speak, in the synagogues throughout the entire world, which are meant to also be a house of prayer. God calls them, my house is a house of prayer for all people. In addition, each one of us is meant to be a dwelling place for God Almighty, because God Almighty is creating us, He's within us, and He's creating us, giving us the opportunity and the honor and the merit to create a dwelling place for Him inside of us, that we should have our thought, speech, and action organized, and our divine powers, our divine intellectual powers, and our divine emotional powers should be grounded and organized in a way that they bring good things into the world, good things into our thoughts, good things into our emotions, and good things into how we express ourselves lovingly to family members and to people around us and to other human beings. This is what God intends, and the purpose of building of the Holy Tabernacle in the desert was to guide the Jewish people how to organize themselves, how to organize their service of God. It should not be just random, haphazard. I feel one way today and I feel another way the next day. But every day is a consistent process of building and growing and increasing in the revelation of the divine message inside each one of us, the divine image, that we consistently grow and consistently increase in the stability and the endurance of the expression of godliness through our thought, speech, and action. And the Torah portion this week concludes that there's a custom after the final words are read, that the congregation declares in great joy, Chazak, Chazak, v'nis chazek, that be strong, and we will be strengthened. And this is giving us the encouragement. It's giving the entire congregation And by extension, every single person, the strength and the understanding that by connecting themselves to God's eternal message for humanity, that we become strong, we are strengthened. We do not have to be afraid of the people who are momentarily distracted from their own godliness and busy with creating chaos and in the world and trying to turn out the lights. Those people are in fact suffering more than the people that they're turning the lights out on, because they're running around just desperate trying to get the lights turned out. And we do not have to be afraid of them. In fact, we have to know that we are strengthened, that God, we have to encourage each other, be strong, and we will be strengthened, that together, when we don't allow people to separate us, when we recognize that it's not just that we have to connect ourselves to God Almighty, but we have to connect ourselves to the people around us, and even the people that we've never met, that we should have a sense of responsibility and a sense of caring for people, to recognize that the greatest gift that we can help them with is to free them from the spiritual slavery. People tend to get moved, and they tend to get call of action to help people from a physical type of difficulty. And that's a beautiful thing, to have acts of righteousness to be able to help other people. But the real help is when you can ground the person, when you can point the person to his own innate godly soul, in his own innate godly message, the own innate divine image. When you can point the person to that, he will then have all the answers. You don't have to give him all the answers, not because you don't want to give him the answers, but because he already has the answers. And he has the answers that are especially tailored for him. He just needs to hear the voice of God within him. So this is chazak v'nis chazek, and especially at a time when we know that we're preparing for Purim. And Purim, it says that he who reads the Megillah, the book of Esther, out of order, does not fulfill his responsibility to hear the book of Esther read on the day of Purim. The Baal Shem Tov explains this to mean that he who sees the reading of the Megillah to be something that's a historical document, it's out of order, meaning to say it's from some time in the past and is not relevant to the present, then he is not fulfilling his obligation. We have to see that the story of Purim, the book of Esther, is something that applies to every single person. It is something that is unfolding for us in every moment. We have to see it as a current event. And just like we were talking about a moment ago, the real problem that led to the entire decree of Haman was that the Jewish people lost sight of the end goal. They lost sight of the end destination, and they began to be enamored of the wealth and the power of the non-Jewish rulers. And they began to think that they would just be subsumed, and they began to despair and of the idea that their role in the world would be fulfilled as the light into the nations and the teachers to the world. So they decided to participate as participants in the celebration that Ahasuerus, the king of Persia at the time, had organized in order to celebrate the despondency of the Jews, to celebrate the despair of the Jews, to celebrate the end of the dream, the end of God's vision, so to speak, and that everything could just run according to however the toughest guy on the block would decide to run it from then on. That was his intention. And Mordechai, only one person stood up and said, don't go, you're making a huge mistake. And the suffering that happened afterwards was a consequence of that terrible misjudgment and that act of despair, the act of giving up. We therefore have to make sure that we don't fall into the same trap. We cannot allow ourselves to give up. We cannot allow ourselves also to believe that the plans of evil men have any power and have any power over us. On one hand, we have to know that people have evil plans. We see in the book of Esther that Haman had evil plans, yet his plans were not in the face of God's work in every single detail to make sure that they would not come to fruition. So on one hand, we have to take them, that when we see the evil plans, the plans of evil men, that we have to see that they're being planning, but we cannot ascribe to it power. We have to move into action, which is the action of Mordechai, the righteous one, that he declared that he was going to take action. He was not going to give in. He was not surrender, and he was going to take action, gather the Jewish children together and teach them the Torah as was supposed to be taught, not a Torah of surrender, not a Torah of despondency, not a Torah of despair that places the decrees of the Persian king over the leadership of the Jewish people over the role of bringing the light into the world, that the power and the sparkle and the glamour of the Persian king and all his ministries of war and ministries of public health and his ministries of economics and so forth should somehow take precedence over the Torah, but rather understanding that the only way the Persian people could thrive is if the Torah shines and the Torah is brought to them. And therefore, Mordechai said, I have to bring this message to the Jewish children. I have to raise people properly from the beginning, that they should understand that there's no place for despair. We have to be in a level of chazak, v'nis chazek, and not be afraid. And we have to also make sure, for all the people who study different things in the world, and they say this, the people who have evil plans, they're doing this and they're doing that. And what happens is that a person starts to believe that there's things floating in the air created by people with evil plans, and that there are dangerous things in the air, and there's dangerous things in the sky, and there's dangerous things in the waves, and the dangerous things in the radiation. And what they end up creating for themselves is a prison of fear, that everywhere they turn and everywhere they look, they believe that they're being attacked at all times by people that somehow have these superpowers to create in all places and all times this power that they ascribe to these people. But who's giving them the power? It's the people who are afraid of them. It's the people who are imagining that they have this power. And who benefits from this fear and who benefits from the power is the people who, not the people who know about it, it's the people who they're ascribing the power to. So therefore, we have to return to reality. And the reality is they may have plans and they may have certain techniques, but they're all nothing. They're all nothing. And you can prove the point that I'm making is you could see how the fear, the spreading of fear, is all designed to lead to inaction. When you receive information about something that's going on and you don't see that there's some clear course of action that you need to take, and the people who are telling you don't tell you to take action, but they just tell you about these people have these plans and these people have those plans, and it leaves you in fear, or this thing's dangerous and it's radiating in the air and it's going to be found all over the place, and there's nothing you could do about it. You're just going to be stuck constantly getting, God forbid, putting into people's minds terrible concepts that somehow they're going to get ill from just being on a certain street corner. This is a mentality that's meant to drag down our energy and drag down our spirits and drag down our sense of well-being. We therefore have to know that Mordechai Tzaddik is brought to our attention that don't be afraid of these scary thoughts that come to your head. Don't be afraid of them. Don't keep focusing on them. The time the world needs us now, any person who is gripped by fear, by what's going on in the world and what's being reported in the news and what everyone's talking about around them, anyone who's gripped by fear becomes absolutely useless to themselves, becomes useless to their family, becomes useless to their community, becomes useless to the world, and becomes useless to their creator. And that's exactly why Amalek wants people to be afraid. Because in that fear, they are paralyzed. When the lion attacks, it roars because it strikes fear into the heart of its prey. And then the prey can't properly escape. It can't properly take care of itself. It can't properly take care of its offspring. It can't properly take care of its herd. So the roar is creating the experience that the prey then goes into fear and goes into paralysis. And the end result is nothing happens except that the attacker who's making the roar gets to do whatever he wants. So the answer is not to now describe in great detail what the roar of the lion is and analyze what he's roaring and look how he's coming and look what he's doing next and all this kind of stuff. That's what the lion wants you to be occupied with. The only thing is to keep going forward. The only thing is to keep taking action and to know that it's God's plan. The lion is roaring like this because it's his job to roar at this point in time, and it's my job to keep moving forward without any regard to his roar whatsoever. And it doesn't matter if it's one lion or it's 10 lions, or it looks like it's 100 million lions, or it looks like the entire world is roaring, including the lions and the trees and everything else. That's all an experience that comes to us in order for us to have the opportunity to say, nevertheless, in spite of all this roaring, nothing will knock me off course from my connection to God Almighty. And that is the lesson for our times. That is, we have to reconnect ourselves. We have to know that any thought that's making us feel fearful and insecure and at risk and so forth, is a thought that's not worth giving consideration to, because it's not leading us to take our godly powers that are in our intellect and our emotions and our thought, speech, and action and bring it into the world for productive purpose. Our job is to put all those things aside and make sure that what shines out of our minds and shines out of our eyes and shines out of our mouths are words of love, are words of compassion, of actions of love, actions of compassion, smiling at other people, helping other people, bringing more children into the world, helping other people bring more children into the world. That's God's message and that's God's mission. And we don't give account to other people's plans when we take those actions. We make sure to take those actions in every time and every place. And when we bring that light into our homes, our homes are a place that are bright, that they're safe to be in, that we don't even let in the discussions of the scary things out there, that we bring our children up in a place of joy. We bring our children in a place of warmth and love. And that is our focus. And we overlook all the things that should have been differently and could have been differently. That is the lesson. The lesson is we're not supposed to be focused on those things. We're supposed to be focused on what is the potential over here. When we're focused on the potential and we give the attention that every person needs, and we give it with love and with patience and determination to be there and to be the living example of what it means to be an upright human being created in God's image, then that's what strengthens the spiritual compass and the spiritual backbone of humanity. And that's what our job is. And that's what the job of the Jewish people is, to bring that message to the world. And it's the job of every human being to carry that message into the world, to make sure it reaches every single human being. So therefore, that's why the Torah concludes for the book of Exodus with an inspiration. It's words of strengthening. And we stand up and we declare, Chazak, Chazak, v'nis chazek, I am strengthened. I'm going to strengthen you. You are strengthening me. And all together, we are strengthened together to have the certainty and the absolute conviction that the ultimate, inevitable side of glory and the side of transforming all of creation into the revealed dwelling place for God Almighty is the side of the victory of God Almighty. And it's not that there's any doubt about that, because he is creating and bringing into existence everything at every moment. So it's only a question, do I want to imagine that someone else has power, which is already leading in the direction of some strange service of believing that that person has power, or do I insist with absolute conviction above all reason, even above all evidence, that no, there is no other power in the world? That is what I have determined to do, and that's what I have a challenge to have to challenge at every moment, every piece of information that comes in. When someone comes running and says this thing flew over that way and that happened this way and the prices are going up over here, all these are opportunities for me to re-ground myself in the commitment to know that the God Almighty is my unshakable support. He is within me. He is creating me. He's creating all of us. He's creating this world, and he's creating it with good intentions, with a good result, with a good end goal. And all we need to do is say, yes, that's what we want. That's what we're focused on. And that's what we're going to build. And that is the redemption for all of humanity. May it come speedily in our times with the coming of our righteous Redeemer and the building of the temple in Jerusalem. And we'll all sing together and say that we'll sing the hallelujahs, we'll sing the praised is the Lord, all of us together, for the kindness that he's done to the Jewish people and for all humanity, that all humanity will declare with great joy that we have worked together to accomplish this incredible, incredible mission. And we were not distracted by the different way stations on the way, but rather we continue to the end, which may it happily and speedily be now with Chesed and Rachamim. A good Shabbos. Now, just a moment before we are done. You are here because you are like me, not satisfied with the condition of the world and the Jewish people, objecting to the direction that confused people are running in, and intent on seeing God Almighty's vision for the world fulfilled. Torah is a manual for action, and we are taking action. At rabbismith.org, we have one goal: to connect every man, woman, and child with God Almighty. This is the only way forward, and that includes you. rabbismith.org has 2 tracks, one for non-Jews and one for Jews. My job is to help point you to the truth,
that not only is the divine spark in you bursting out, but you have loving responsibility to those around you, and they will thrive from your clarity and your orientation. Now, join at rabbismith.org. We have new initiatives starting. We have just started a weekly class, Amunah, Faith in Action, to shepherd our faith and learn how to shepherd the faith of those around us. Videos, audios, materials, and newsletters. But most importantly, a relationship. The relationship of one person wanting the best for another and taking action to make that happen. At rabbismith.org, I will be asking you to make a personal undertaking to share what you learn with others and to spread the message of hope to every person, and to make a small daily contribution to support our joint vision and mission. Join us as we get the world on track for Mashiach, for redemption, and make it unfold. Enroll at rabbismith.org, and I will see you there.